Hey Don, let's hear your story in
Yeah.
regards to your pension and how you got screwed over on that.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
And what
Uh,
tricks you have learned.
so I joined the Marine Corps in 1984. I got married in 1998. So I had 14 and a half years in the Marine Corps Reserve. By the time I got married, I was already a gunnery sergeant in E7. Um, and then I was married 16 years. Several
Wow.
several activations, several deployments throughout that time. I applied for the warrant officer program, and then I was a chief warrant officer 3 when we got divorced. And then 3 years after our divorce, I was selected for chief warrant officer 4. Then I retired at 36 years at the end of 2019 or beginning of
Wow.
2020. Um, when we went through divorce, this was in October of 2000. What year is this now? 25, 2014, I guess. We went. And my attorney says, yeah, she wants part of your military retirement. And I said, what? I'd already been in, I think, 31 years at the time. I said, you're kidding me, right? And she said, no. And I said, no, not a chance. And she says, well, the judge is going to award it anyway. So you have to agree to it. I was like, what? And I didn't have a clue then. I didn't know what I know now. And so they drew up the papers, the marital settlement agreement, also known as a divorce decree, depending on where you are. And they assigned a third party attorney who's apparently a friend of the judge's to divide. It says divide respondents' military retirement benefits. And that's it. And it said both parties are responsible for the fees, blah, blah, blah. Okay. And I didn't pay attention to the language. I was all going through all kinds of stress,
Yeah.
through the divorce, parental alienation, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
And then a few months later, I was working my ass off because the judge told me to go to work, support her. She didn't have to do a thing. She was living with her parents, collecting. I think I was paying between child support and alimony over $2,000 a month. She was living with her parents, not doing a thing, not lifting a finger. Kids were homeschooled. She didn't have any responsibilities whatsoever. No food, no rent, nothing. And so I was working my ass off, and then I'm getting emails from this attorney, this third party attorney, saying, "Hey, Mr. Wenger, we need your points. Because in a reserve you earn points." And I said, I've got several more years to retire. That's the last thing on my mind right now. I said, I'm busting my ass trying to make ends meet. Go fish. And then they kept pushing me, and then finally I said, look, tell me what you want and in what format. And I was arguing with back and forth through email with these clowns. And they said every member we've dealt with has always been able to supply them. And I said, that's
He's
fine,
like,
but tell me what you want and in what format, and I'll provide it. And they wouldn't. They kept dodging that question. They never answered my question. So eventually, they sent a letter to. I guess they filed something with the judge. Judge signed an order and then sent it to DFAS. And because of the language in there that was illegal, the indemnification clause, and the fact that they violated state and federal law, I didn't think anything of it. I thought DFAS would reject it. This was in 2017. And then in 2018, I wrote to DFAS. I wanted to find out what what the status was. And DFAS wrote me a letter saying they accepted it. They awarded her 50% of my entire 36 years.
oh,
Because Mr. Wenger, quote, failed to provide his points. Well, the first thing is, one, the judge didn't order it. And two, there is no legal responsibility for any service member to provide his points, DD 214, or years of service.
No.
That is the responsibility of the court and opposing counsel to submit a I guess they have to submit a FOIA request. I've got the DFAS. I've got it up on the DFAS website right here.
Uh-huh.
But they put it on me, and DFAS accepted it. And I went back and forth with DFAS. They also awarded the survivor benefit plan, which was also not in my divorce decree. I didn't know anything about it, but the judge signed it. And I guess I pissed the judge off because I wouldn't comply with his friend's request. And so now I'm going to be 60 this month. I became, but as a reservist after the FY 2008 NDAA, for every 90 days you do on active duty, you can deduct that from the age of 60. So I became eligible 4.5 years ago, and I still haven't applied because it's so screwed up. Now, I'll back up for a second here. Once I found out that they awarded her 50% of everything, I filed a motion to have the order set aside, and she fought me on it. My ex-wife fought me to have that set aside, and then she and her counsel her attorney were successful in telling the judge that I failed to comply with this third-party attorney. And so the judge denied my motion. So right now, I don't have, I'm losing thousands of dollars, not technically losing, but now she's getting 100% of nothing.
She's getting what?
Now she's getting 100% of nothing. She pushed it and pushed it and pushed it. And, she actually wanted, once they got pissed off at me and said she gets 50% of my entire 36 years, she said, "Oh, okay, cool." And then she started taking trips around the world. She went to Italy, she went to Spain, she went to Hawaii, she went on an Alaskan cruise, she went to New Zealand, she went all over the place. She was just spending money like a drunken sailor, except she was spending somebody else's money. She was like she hit the jackpot. And I've been fighting. There's not an attorney in California that has the balls to do the right thing and correct this for me.
I know that to be true.
You might have to do it yourself, man.
I am. I'm working on that, and Bob and I have got a plan too, because the point of the whole thing with the indemnification clause in there regarding combat-related special compensation makes the whole thing void, and that's what my Steve, I think Bob sent you my case that's at the Ninth Circuit right now.
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah, Don, if it'll help at all, as you know, I'm a paralegal right now. If you need a second set of eyes to review that stuff for completeness or errors, I would be happy to assist.
Yeah, I'd appreciate that. I mean, I'm learning, and I've also learned.
Well, it's how I learned.
This is one thing that I have learned that I would say this is probably the case in several other states, although I haven't researched that many except California and Nevada. In California, under Family Code, it's California Family Codes 770 through 772. It says, there's paraphrasing here, anything you earn after divorce is separate property. Now, a lot of attorneys don't understand this. These attorneys are so dumb and lazy, they think Radar O'Reilly and Max Klinger are real life characters, and that's the real representation of the Army. That's all they know about the military. And even some of our fellow service members don't realize that military retirement is not earned until the day of retirement. I've got even friends, and I've told them several times, it is not a pension. It is a retirement. There's a difference.
Yes.
And the word pension is like a 4-letter word to me when it comes to military retirements.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So because it has not yet been earned, that is a contradiction with California Family Code 772. I have not yet earned it. So California is violating its own law. And there's not an attorney in the history of California that's uncovered this. And
I
most
would
don't have the
wager
gut.
that they don't care.
Well, I think that's probably the first part of it. You're probably right.
Yeah.
So, I haven't yet applied. I've got several different strategies, but I'm the one that holds the cards. I'm doing okay. I mean, would I like to have it? Yeah. I spent a long time working toward it. But the only thing, the points or for you gentlemen that are retired active duty, the points or the months in service, all that does, it equals experience. Every single service member who is in receipt of retirement pay is subject to recall for the rest of his or her life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Many of us don't know that.
Yep.
And you are subject, like in my case, I'm a logistics officer. If the Marine Corps, if there was some sort of contingency, like say, let's just say hypothetically there was a riot in LA or something, like just something silly like that.
That wouldn't happen. Knock it off.
No, never happened. But let's say the Marine Corps had some sort of contingency or special purpose Marine Corps Air Ground task force that they needed a logistics officer. They could call me and say, hey, would you like to come back on active duty? They're not going to call a corporal or a sergeant. While, some of these junior Marines are very capable, that doesn't fit the billet.
They're
They're
definitely
paying
going to
based
recall
on your
CW4.
MOS and your rank.
Mhm.
That is the entire purpose for retirement. It is not a reward for previous service like many people think.
And for those people out there who do not understand, warrant officers in the Marines and the Army are subject matter experts. So if they're going to be recalled, it's going to be those guys. It's definitely going to be the chief warrant officers.
In a lot of cases, yeah.
I have a document here, tips for service members. Do you want to go over that, Don?
Oh, yeah, I can. First of all, I want
See if I
to
can
make it clear that, like a lot of people think, that there's no such thing as vesting in military retirement.
Okay.
Once you're over 20 years, you can have that taken away. If you commit a felony or you renounce your citizenship, or there's several other factors, you don't get your retirement. There are several cases. There's a guy named Mark Visconti, retired Air Force Colonel, who was caught with porn on his computer and all kinds of other nasty stuff.
Mhm.
He got kicked out of the Air Force, went to prison, lost his retirement. A guy named Stephen Larrabee, retired Marine Corps Staff Sergeant, went to work for as a contractor at Marine Corps Air Station Iwakuni, Japan, sexually assaulted the wife of a Marine, challenged it, was court-martialed, and his attorneys argued that he could not be court-martialed because he had no place to which he had to report. He was retired. And the government came back and said, no, he had an option to refuse his retirement. And yet he accepted it, so he was subject to UCMJ.
Oh,
Wow.
See,
There's no
I
guy-
didn't know it went that far.
Sure.
I thought you would have to be brought back on duty to get UCMJ'd after retirement.
No, because he was just over 20 years retired, retained.
Wow.
There's another guy, Marine Corps gunnery
Hang on,
sergeant.
Chief. What does retired retained mean?
That that's basically what military retirement is. There's military retired retainer pay. So everybody is subject to recall.
So if you're retired retained.
Yes. Now I think it changes after 30 years, but you're still now. Is it likely to happen? Not very unlikely after 30 years, but you are subject to recall if you're in retired retained status between 20 and 30 years.
Yeah, I can't really ever see him calling me back. I mean, I'm a grunt.
Yeah.
Your 100% disability may factor into that as well.
Very unlikely, and there are 3 tiers under. I think it's DOD 1352.01, DODI 1352.01. There are 3 tiers. Even those that are severely disabled are subject to recall, but it's very unlikely. But it could still happen, and that's the entire purpose of the retirement.
No, I've already researched this, Chief, and I technically could be recalled no matter what, depending upon the circumstances. And if that were to happen, or if I knew it was going to happen, I know enough people still in the system to do a by name request, so I would get sent under their preview instead of just going into willy-nilly needs of the Army.
Yeah. Wow.
Yep.
Wow. So let me bring that back up on the thing there. You have tips for service members and attorneys representing them for dividing MRP. What is MRP? First of all, let's start there.
Military retirement pay.
Okay.
In the
Have that.
divorce communities. Yeah. So I am 100% against anybody who didn't serve receiving a portion of military retirement pay. And I could win an argument against any attorney, service member, former spouse, or anybody as to the justification for dividing it. I've heard every single story, and the arguments are just stupid. But if you're forced to divide it, I would say do not automatically agree to the division award. It's not mandatory like a lot of attorneys think. Yep. And again, like I mentioned on California family codes, it is many states don't have statutes that address military retirement. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't automatically agree to a 50%. I would say agree to a portion of a portion if you're forced into that, and don't agree to a lifetime award. Yeah. It doesn't have to be lifetime. People think it does. And I've even had attorneys in the state tell me that California state law says it's a lifetime, yet California state law doesn't even mention it.
If it's not mentioned in the law, then it is not mentioned in the law. And what I mean by that, this is from the perspective of work in the legal industry, it is a fiction and it cannot be enforced.
Correct.
And yet judges enforce it anyway. I've seen it enforced,
even though it doesn't exist. On it. Right. You sign off on it, and then DFAS accepts it. That's it. It's done deal unless you get a order saying we're changing it.
We were on do not agree for a lifetime award, I think, Don.
Yeah. Well, I would say, well, actually, I skipped one. Don't agree to an award where the marriage lasts than 20 years. I and the rest of us have to serve at least 20 years of satisfactory service before qualifying to apply. I emphasize the word apply for retirement. Mm-hmm. Why was somebody
injury, yes.
Why was somebody who was only married 16 years? Why does she get a portion of that? If I had quit at 16 years, how much would the government give me? Zero. So yeah, I wouldn't agree to that. A lifetime award. There's nothing anywhere that says it has to be a lifetime. Nothing anywhere. That's a tool that I didn't realize at the time. Again, I was under duress, and my attorney was, part of the problem. The next bullet is a big one. That's about the indemnification clause, and we covered that last week. Don't agree to any indemnification clause at all.
Okay, please go into explain indemnification clause like we're E3 grunts, please.
Okay, so in the event that a service member qualifies for combat-related special compensation or Chapter 61 retirement, a lot of these clauses force the service member to agree to indemnify the ex-wife, usually the ex-wife, for the portion she would have received, right, had the service member not applied for and been approved for either of these services. So that's all that means. It means you make up the difference, and that's not legal. But even though it's not legal, we've got a few friends and a few cases that are going to the Supreme Court. They signed those even though they're not legal, but they've still got caught with the courts forcing them to make up the difference. So again, and the last one is, and this was pointed out to me, there's a gentleman named Brian Mork. He's a Air Force Reserve Colonel. I think he's retired now. He went through some stuff, and he's created a webpage dedicated to this. But in the case of a reservist, like I'm 60, my ex-wife is 52. As a reservist, you have to wait until you're 60 before you're eligible. Why should she get it when I get it? Why not just like Social Security, where she has to also wait until she's 60, especially since she started on third base? Where does that happen besides Hollywood, the Beltway, nepotism, and the family court system, where you get to start on third base?
Well, hey, Chief, so you were married 16 years, correct?
Right.
How many years was that active duty?
I was married in my 15th year in the Marine Corps. When I got married, I was mobilized several times, but I was still technically a reservist.
Okay. All right. So the way it works in the Soldier Sailor, what is it? The Soldier Sailor Relief Act.
Soldier Sailor Relief Act.
I believe it's 10 years. If you're on active duty for 20 and you pull a pension, she had to be married to you for 10 active years to get half your pension.
That's a myth.
That's
the
not
10-year thing is only so DFAS can pay directly.
Yeah.
They've awarded people that are married 4 years, 5 years, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's not even if you are married half of the time, it's still not automatically half. You can negotiate that.
Okay.
Yeah.
But again, in the case of a reservist, why would she get it when I get it? When she hasn't met the age requirements, and I've had to wait 42 years for this. Why not?
She
her?
shouldn't get a nickel to begin with.
Exactly.
Of your retirement. That's
You're
just
100% right.
That's just insane.
Yeah. Fuck that shit, man. That's insane.
I can that's just a draft. I mean, I can come up with a bunch more stuff, and I've got 42 pages of stuff that I'm working on building a website. But if you want to share that with anybody, and if anybody is going through this, they can contact you. You can give them my email. I will help anybody. I can't guarantee, but I will give them the tips that I've learned, because I don't want anybody else to get screwed.
Yeah,
that's why we're doing this.
That's why we're doing this, Don. That's exactly why we're doing this.
See, I never even knew, like, Don, when you're talking about these lifetime and the page that was brought up, Steve, I don't know if
the page that was brought up.
Well,
you mean this guy right here?
There you go.
Yeah.
When you're talking about a lifetime award, I never knew this. This actually happens.
Nobody does.
A lifetime award? Wow.
That is a favorite thing in California by the way. I
never thought that happened like that, but wow, that's
yeah.
Holy shit.
Mm-hmm.
And these people I see, I lurk on these former spouse pages all the time. These people come up with the nuttiest crap. They say, "Oh, I'm worried I'm going to lose it. I'm worried he's going to get disability." Never mind that he got blown up. You're not worried about that.
No. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
And a lot of them say, "Oh, I helped him get promoted. No, I'm responsible. If it weren't for me, he wouldn't have made E8."
Wait. Excuse me, ma'am. Are you implying that you blew the commander?
Yeah. But the other argument to that, and there's an attorney here in Riverside, California, that's a real moron, and he calls the promotions during military service, he calls it what he calls a marital foundation theory, that the stay-at-home spouse helped. Well, I've got an argument to that. Well, what if you've seen soldiers that have been going through some stress, and they're gaining weight, they can't function at work, they don't meet the physical training requirements, whatever, so they don't get selected for promotion. Mm-hmm. In those cases, are the spouses also responsible for the lack of selection? You can't have it both ways.
Mm-mm.
Actually, that is a thing. I've literally had to deal with fatties, and I remember on at least half a dozen occasions, I would call in the fatties to come in for like a 2-week drill, Monday through Friday. I'd literally give them a PT test when they showed up. If they failed, then it's PT every morning. And then I give them another 2 or 3 days. If they fail that PT test, then it's PT twice a day.
Right.
And I would literally put these guys on the treadmill, have them doing their fucking PT, and I would dog the shit out of them. And I'd watch the unmarried guys over a 2-week period lose 5 to 8 pounds of fat, and the married guys stay the same. And I call it the marriage phenomena.
There's a lot of stress at home.
Well, they go home.
In the Marine Corps, I'll tell you, if you don't pass with a first-class score in your combat fitness test or physical fitness test, you're not getting promoted.
Yeah.
So if they don't get selected, are the stay-at-home spouses also responsible for the lack of selection? You can't have it both ways. You can't be responsible if they do get promoted, but then not be responsible if they don't.
Right.
What I'm getting at is these women are like, oh, you had a hard day. Here's an extra scoop of potatoes. Have another beer. Here's a hunk of cake. The unmarried guy's like, I'm just eating tuna, drinking water, going to bed. We're going to rinse and repeat this shit and get it over with.
This is another argument the attorneys use. They say, well, she moved around. You know, they make it a victim.
Not if you're a reservist, you didn't.
Right. And that's what my third bullet point on here. For reservists who never moved as a result of being married to a service member, even if you're activated for several years, which I was in several deployments, they don't move. What sacrifices do they have?
Right.
You know, so they got to stay inside on a rainy day and order DoorDash. Come on. I mean, where's the hardship?
The movement thing doesn't really count either for those of us who are overseas and take our families on what's called COTS, continuous overseas tours, because their move consists of living in a very comfy, well-provided for military compound, rent-free, no electricity bill, no gas bill, no water bill. So here's your free home, lady.
Sure,
you're living for free on the government's dime while we're overseas.
And I have a theory on that too. A lot of, if you look at some of these former spouse pages, you probably can't stomach to see the crap these people come up with and the entitlement mentalities. But I think a lot of these people are small town women, and I say women. There are some men out there who are assholes too, but most of them, and that's just because of the numbers. I think the Marine Corps is 88 to 92% males, and most divorces are initiated by women. But a lot of these people are small town women. They want to marry a soldier or a Marine or a sailor, and they're thinking officer and a gentleman are Top Gun. They think everything is going to be galas in dress whites and formals. And when that fantasy dies off and we're in the field or we're working 18-hour days, and they can't handle that, and they want you to come home and do more. That's when the shit hits the fan, and that's when things fall apart, and they think, oh gosh, this isn't what I thought it was going to be.
Or like I supported special operations, so I would literally get the 3 a.m. phone call, grab your shit, be down at headquarters, and we'd be gone for 2-3 weeks. Where'd you go? Can't tell you. Well, what were you doing? Sorry, can't tell you that either. You know, within my wife's case, I told her off the bat, look, we're gone a lot. I'm letting you know right up front. We're straight up gone a lot. You're going to be taken care of. We have a circle of wives in our community. They're really tight-knit. You'll be fine. But, and
that's another thing.
Drop of a hat, we're gone.
No other job. You know, my dad got out of the Air Force in 1969. My parents moved 9 times after that, probably more than most service members.
Yeah.
Nobody, with the cities where we moved, there wasn't a group of people who lived in the same neighborhood who all worked at the same place.
Yeah.
You know, there's that support system too. I mean, they're taken care of, but for these people, nothing is ever enough.
Yeah.
So the I had to move around garbage, I've heard that I don't know how many times. It's just stupid.
What you're telling me, what you're seeing in the chats and all of that stuff, I'd like to harvest some of that, because Pop, that is a guaranteed winner Thursday night show.
Yeah, I'll send you some of they're on Facebook. I just lurk because
that's
I
the
would
military edition right there.
Pull my whatever hair I had left, I would pull it out, just trying to argue with these people, and it was just like arguing with a wall. You can provide the statutes, you can provide the facts, and they don't want to hear it, and they come up with all kinds of shit. So I just lurk and take notes now.
Well, because it contradicts their narrative.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. But military base stories of that nature would probably make for a very good Thursday night show. I'm sure we could find some stuff on TikTok and YouTube as well.
Yeah. But another thing, another one of my bullet points is the survivor benefit plan. I would never agree to that. Some of the courts force it, but you can say no. You say, you know what? Then I'm just not going to apply for my retirement. I hold the cards. Under Title 10, these courts cannot force you to retire.
That's right.
And then the third party attorney I was talking about, they do what's called a quadro, a qualified domestic relations order.
Yep.
And this clown that screwed my things up. The guy is not even a family law attorney. He's an accountant. He's an attorney, but he's an accountant, and he has no freaking clue. He can't even spell DODFMR, and he has absolutely no clue what he's talking about. But I would not agree to that. I would just, if you're going to agree to division of your retirement, in the last page, the last 3 pages of DODFMR, and I think I referenced it in here. It's DOD 7000.14R, Volume 7B, Chapter 29. At the end are sample order language. It takes 5 minutes. You don't need to pay an attorney. You don't need to pay some clown $1,500 to come up with a division. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of money, and you will get screwed. It takes 5 minutes, but these attorneys are way too lazy. Plus, this guy's got a racket. He's in with the judge. All these people they're in with the judges. So the judge say, "Oh, I'm going to default to this guy."
Chief, this document you have right here should be one part of the in-briefing when you join the United States what the fuck ever of America. Pick your service.
Yeah.
And 2 should be required retraining when you get married while in uniform.
How many of us?
It should be required training.
Of those of us here that were military and everybody else watching, how many of us were briefed when we joined the service? 0. I'll bet you 0. That your retirement could be taken away from you. When I signed the document, when I took my oath, and I agreed to serve at least 20 years, I agreed to receive a portion of my retirement pay based on my rank and years of service, not a portion of a portion.
Right.
And so it serves no purpose, because the entire purpose is that I am subject to recall based on my experience. More points equals more experience. More years in service. If you're at 24 years, 26 years, 28 years, that's more experience. That's why the pay tables go up for every 2 years.
Absolutely. Yep.
It serves no purpose to it. Like, are they going to call my ex-wife and say, "Hey, since you're receiving a portion of retirement pay, we need a logistics officer"? She doesn't have the first clue. Doesn't have the first clue. Doesn't know a thing about the military. Didn't even like the military.
Yep.
I think of the guys here and most of the guys listening, I may have come the closest. If any of you had a drill sergeant named Plowden at any time in the early 90s, Drill Sergeant Plowden. We were doing the usual, you get your duffel and you're out on the pavement and hold up one wet weather top, pack it. You pack it into your duffel bag. At the end of it all, he goes, "You will note that there was no wife in your duffel bag. If the United States Army wanted you to have a wife, there would be one in your duffel bag."
There you go.
That was Drill Sergeant Plowden. That's as close as we came to having this briefing here.
Well, I actually briefed quite a few soldiers when I was in regards to getting married, the dangers, what could happen.
Had I understood it, I would have done that.
Well, the way I would tell these guys, I'm like, "Hey man, if you get married, you got to remember, if you're married for 10 years or more, she gets half your shit. So you got to really ask yourself, is the pussy worth it?"
But how many of us, because the problem is we all married the same types of women. Most of these people have cluster B personality disorders.
Yeah.
How many of us would have listened? I know I wouldn't have.
No, I wouldn't.
I would have said, "Oh, that's not going to happen to me. My wife loves me."
Right.
And I was, I wish I could go back, 25 years and kick my own ass, because
the only thing that saved me is I got married when I went into the National Guard Reserves after I got off, did my active duty the first time I went in. And I was married for 6 years, but I was in Guard Reserve time. So that's the equivalent of like 1.1 years of active duty time when you go to the points. And they tried to bring it up. My ex-wife's attorney tried to bring it up, try to get half his pension. And the judge is like, are you in active duty right now? I'm like, no. And he goes, that's not going to happen then.
Yeah.
And shut it down from the very beginning.
That's good. That's good.
So, I mean, I got fucked over pretty hard, but there's a couple times where the judge was, pretty okay. Like they tried to bring up the, he's abusive. And the judge is like, before we go down this road, are there any hospital records? Are there any arrest reports?
Yeah.
Or do you have any printout from the local PD where cars were sent to the home for any of these? If it's no to all of these, I don't want to fucking hear it. And they shut it down right there on the spot.
Yeah. Oh yeah. My son was sitting next to me last night. We were talking, and he looks over. He's 11, and he's like, "Dad, I want to be an Army. I want to be an Army like you."
No.
I just kind of looked at him, and I'm like,
not in this Army, son.
No, I'm like, it's tough, man. And not only that, but again, Don, like you said, I mean, you don't know. I mean, we're all in that same, when we get with these women and things like that, it's like, you don't know. I mean,
I almost feel like what we need in this country right now is a complete retooling of the Army where it becomes like a Knights Templar or a Knights of Malta, where it's males only and you swear a life of chastity while you're in uniform.
Yeah.
No, it's tough, man. It's tough,
Yeah.
especially with a son. And, he's like, Dad, I want to be an Army like you. And I'm like, oh, man.
Now tell him to be an electrician.
Or a welder. Welders make bank. Yep.
It's tough, guys.
Well, you can be an electrician a lot longer than you can be a welder because of the fumes.
You could do both, dude.
Right. Yeah.
But I cannot in good conscience, with the way the courts are and all of the fucked up laws, I cannot in good conscience recommend a man get married or join the military.
Right.
I just can't. I can't do it in good conscience, and I won't do it.
Watch Grunt Speak live every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern. And if you want to join Pop for Supporters Sundays, go to redonkulas.com/donate and make a monthly pledge. A link is in the Meat Gazer box.